Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
WESN.
Can't hear anything. Something. Welcome, one and all. This is Talking on the WSND Content Capital Show. Michael Small here with you once again. A lot to get through in the short time as the week closes out and we're at the end of the vacation period. So just to get into it, yesterday one of the callers called and asked about the situation with regards to oil and gas. I believe, I can't remember if it was about the refinery or if it was about the Venezuelan contingent. And the point was, it was somewhat separate issues that I was speaking about yesterday. And as the situation has unfolded, now we see a lot of interesting questions and uncertainty with regards to our energy sector. Of course, there's always the situation with the refinery, and to what extent is the economic feasibility actually practical or impractical, and then what would be the potential real explanations as to why. And I put it that way because I have reached the point where I do believe that the narrative of why the refinery was closed might have been based on interesting accounting as opposed to not necessarily, I don't want to necessarily say that it was an intentional wool over the eyes situation, but perhaps not necessarily properly explained or even understood by the speakers at the time. You know, that might be a little bit generous, but we'll go with that. Now, with regards to the future deals with Venezuela, which always was somewhat important on the agenda for our economic future, which is an interesting situation with regards to how the politics of our relationship with Venezuela has played out. Now, the long and short was the current government spent some time criticizing the past government and then also decided to support the United States agenda with regards to the Southern Caribbean and Venezuela. And that has left our Prime Minister in a bit of a political no man's land, because as the member of the opposition pointed out, what is our Prime Minister's standing while we are now attempting to engage with Venezuela in negotiations for joint exploitation of energy resources, some of which, like Dragon, is wholly owned by the Venezuelans themselves. Now, it has come out, Stuart Young did ask, and it has come out that Minister Sobers has formally now, on behalf of the government, recognized Delcy Rodriguez as interim president. And it seems as though it was one of those things that the government did not want to necessarily make pronouncement on one way or the other. So they avoided the question blatantly. And I say blatantly not to imply it was a bad thing. I actually do think it was a good thing. Look, why hide from it? You don't want to say it, just say you don't want to say. Which they did. And I have no problem with doing that because, in part, it makes logical sense if you consider how we got where we got. Where by supporting the Americans and having to wait to some extent to see how everything unfolds, they can't necessarily just run in and say, oh, we recognize this one, we recognize that one, right? And you're not saying that you don't recognize, you're just saying we're not answering that question yet. Now, there might have been ways to maybe soften that a little bit more, and that might actually be ultimately the actual issue with the government's foreign policy positions on Venezuela. It's not necessarily the decisions that was made, supporting the Americans, wanting assistance with narco trafficking, turning a blind eye, essentially, to an attempt to change the regime, if ever so slightly. We didn't really see major regime change in Venezuela, by the way. What it was, and this seemingly is President Trump's modus operandi. He is going to talk a big game, but he will do the bare minimum in order to get the smallest change, if that change will allow for enough to meet his criteria moving forward. If he could get away with just affecting things in a minor way, and that will be enough to change the direction of how things are going, because there's less risk with that, right? So there hasn't really been boots on the ground with Iran, but they have been posturing to say that they can. They went and they got Nicolas Maduro and his wife, but the regime is more than just the former president, I guess you could say at this point, of Venezuela. The regime was an entire system of government, including cabinets, ministers, generals, Supreme Court judges, an entire, well, top to bottom, support network that kept Nicolas Maduro in power, who then allowed the benefits to keep flowing to those who supported him. By removing the head, you don't get rid of that whole system. You just send a message, A, modify your behavior. But on some level, it was interesting that throughout all of that, the Venezuelan government seemingly targeted our prime minister more than the American president, despite the fact it was not planes, it was not bombs, and it wasn't our threats. And it was one of those things where, tonally, if you want to have a nuanced stance, and the prime minister attempted in terms of content to have a nuanced stance, verbally said, was not supporting regime change. Verbally said, we approve of any actions against transnational drug smuggling. That's cool. To some extent, very few people believe that to be 100% the truth. But I'm willing to roll with the messaging, except there was way too much aggression, kill them all, and the like. And then, of course, there was very little diplomatic maneuvering to try to justify or explain our stance post Maduro getting arrested. It was as though our commentary from the government just disappeared, and prior claims were made hollow. And because of that now, our diplomatic solution with Venezuela, they already have a contentious relationship, seemingly, with the United States. Just how things unfolded the week after, the day after, days after, and the week after, with regards to who's in charge and whatever. Again, the US president will make big claims like they're in charge. Because on some level, in some ways they are, but in some ways they're not. And of course, the Venezuelan government is going to have an issue with that. Regardless of what they think of his statements, they're going to push back against it publicly. Otherwise, they risk the regime of what remains, which is, again, is the bulk of the system, running into issues with internal control. So, because of that, they have a narrative that they've been crafting about the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And it's not so easy for them now to make a U-turn on their own narrative of our Prime Minister. And it did not help that our Prime Minister, not necessarily based on the content of what she said for the most part, because again, the content was attempting to establish a more nuanced position. But the tone at times, basically, to many people, and I don't necessarily like it being described this way, but I have to acknowledge the fact that enough people, for it to be statistically relevant, basically looked at our Prime Minister as a cheerleader for the United States. Now again, I get it. There was a part of me that really thought foreign intervention into drug smuggling, not necessarily that I wanted to see them kill all of the drug smugglers, but foreign intervention was a game changer for the dynamics of how our law enforcement would be able to deal with internationally connected criminal networks established in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, the American presence technically is still here. It's just not necessarily whether there's less boats or less assets, less naval assets in the region. It's not making the same mark as it was before they got Maduro. So I'm not entirely sure if we're really going to see what we hope for with regards to foreign help to eliminate foreign drug money from affecting our country negatively. But what we are having to deal with is the aftermath of our stance over a situation that saw our neighbor's president being taken. Whether justified or not, you can, of course, not reasonably expect them to be fine with it. Because if they were to switch gears and do a complete 180 with regards to Trinidad all of a sudden, it will make them look somewhat disingenuous to their own people because they repeatedly spoke out against Prime Minister Kamala Bissau-Bissessor. Repeatedly. In much stronger, direct language than I believe even the American president. Maybe I was only seeing the stuff directed at us and not necessarily catching the stuff directed at them. So what does that mean going forward? Now, months ago, Karen actually looked at the numbers, and again, she may not have the complete picture, right? But based on the numbers, is Dragon that important? Does Dragon have that much potential with regards to turning our situation around now for now? I would argue at the very least, ideally, you would have all the projects possible. There are fields that we don't necessarily need to cooperate with Venezuela to exploit, that hopefully those projects will come online within a couple of years, and based on some numbers, those projects seemingly offer more promise, particularly in the short term, than, say, Dragon. But I guess perhaps this is telling with regards to how deep of a hole we're in. And now the government is trying to play a very interesting balancing act where they have to move on or move forward from all of the public utterances they had late last year and figure out a way now to improve diplomatic ties, because while everything was going on, the Prime Minister kept saying two things. We support the people of Venezuela, which, if you read between the lines, basically can imply we hope for regime change, or we do not agree with the current regime running Venezuela. And then the other thing was our relationship with Venezuela is good, which was something I found very interesting, that she was saying that while Venezuela was directly insulting her, the person. Now Minister Sobers has admitted that the relationship not so good. And this is just one more area where, you know, down the line, the government essentially had to either admit something or not speak or have no explanation for something in the past that makes those past stances seem a little bit hollow. It was quite obvious our diplomatic relationship with Venezuela was not going to be peachy. And I didn't understand why the government was saying that it was fine when no one was going to think that it was fine. So now that Minister Sobers has to basically say, you know, let me get his actual words. There's room for growth. Ties were getting better day by day, and that there can always be improvements on friendships. But our Prime Minister is still technically persona non grata to answer Stuart Young's question. I'm not entirely sure whose press conference was after whose. I would imagine the government's press conference was after the opposition's. So that makes it very interesting with regards to how do we move forward with any sort of negotiations with Venezuela, with something like that hanging over our heads. And also, and this is the most important thing, because throughout the entire process of our relationship with Venezuela, it's never just when we get the decision we're hoping for. It's how is that position maintained moving forward. We got the OFAC license and we were engaged with the Maduro regime, and seemingly we got the okay from all parties involved to get the Dragon deal done. But then at the end of the day, the political situation was not just once we get the okay in the moment, we're on solid foundation moving forward. Even the Biden administration stipulated certain things with regards to the Venezuelan elections, which, as far as I've seen, all observers that I have listened to, all accounts, those elections were not free and fair. So it's not just if we could get our relationship with Venezuela to a good place, but then it has to be maintained. And the politics of the situation, which in the past it was out of our control, and currently it's out of our control, because it is in part dependent on the United States. And one of the interesting things, and I don't mean this in any sort of happy-go-lucky way, but one of the most interesting things about the future is the fact that the biggest military power in the world, I don't think anybody could predict who is going to be anywhere close to who is going to be the next president of the United States, and therefore predict what American policy is going to be moving forward. Because, and I could be wrong, America could settle for some substitute teacher of a candidate, and they could put overwhelming support on somebody just for the sake of doing it. But the wide range, I think in the past, you would have got a lot of more serious candidates being a bit closer to the center than what you would see now. And that wide range means you could get an American government that would be very supportive of Venezuela or very critical of Venezuela. And a very critical government could do things that could eventually lead to more sanctions. And a supportive government could do things that doesn't necessarily end up in a positive outcome either. And we'll be stuck in the middle. And then we will have to re-engage whoever our government is at the time. I don't expect the Prime Minister to have a second term. Not speaking to her ability, but rather just physical health. But that's my opinion. I expect it to be somebody else, somebody new, which ironically, I also don't think anyone could predict who will be the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And maybe Prime Minister Pasabi-Sessa will have another term. But that will probably be the limit. And that's still, in my mind, uncertain. So there's uncertainty for us with regards to who's going to engage with the new American administration. Again, yes, there's some talk about Trump going for a third term, but that also will be so uncertain that you can't necessarily apply that as a stabilizing factor. So to exploit these energy deals, it's not a, well, we get the okay today and in a year's time it's done. These are multi-year, decade-long plus deals where relationships have to be maintained. Right now in the Middle East, Qatar shares a natural gas field with Iran. And they were doing their best to try to keep things from turning into a shooting conflict. And unfortunately, their best for them wasn't good enough. And also, equally unfortunately, Iran decided to take out some of their aggression on Qatar. But that's just a show, because for the longest while, that relationship put practical concerns over other things, over other political ideologies and the like. But at some point, that's an example of things breaking down. Even long-standing relationships of compromise, of practical necessity, where they say, well, let's not touch this. At some point, nothing is sacred in the face of a desire of an administration to get a certain outcome. Why is all of this important? Because we have yet to create any other significant economic opportunity for us. We have yet to do so. And ironically, you know the saying, you need money to make money? Ironically, it is so much harder now to try to make any moves to alleviate our economic situation and I feel we're not necessarily learning that lesson. Because if we do get these deals done, how much of that money, I mean, on a practical level, it is needed to deal with immediate needs. But how much of that money will be utilized for projects that could add value and invest in the future so that our future post-energy GDP is not going to be in a state of near collapse, like you could arguably state we are now. Our deficit is not bigger because of great financial management. Our deficit is not bigger because successive governments just did not include certain expenditures or allocations for necessary expenditures in the budget. So certain schools are not completed. Certain critical areas of public service are understaffed or under-resourced, and they have been for quite some time. And we need money to make money, but we also need to spend money to essentially pay off our debts and pay off our bills now for now. But we live in a society where people don't want to study that. They just want to study, I need help, give me some freeness now. Not understanding that the freeness of today we pay for tomorrow, because ironically, this is what that tomorrow looks like. The freeness of 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. That cost for all of those government assistance, social programs, etc., etc. People want to pretend that government money grows on trees, that the government can afford. No, at some point you have to pay a bill. Nothing is free. And you might say, oh, well, why do we have capitalism for? Let's just make everything owned by everybody. That's not what it means when nothing is free. You could remove money from the equation. It's still not going to change the basic dynamics. You can't have things for free and not pay a price. Someone still has to actually grow the food. Someone still has to actually make the furniture. Someone still actually has to build the house. So all of the assistance that was granted throughout the years when we had money, this is now the price we pay for doing so. To the extent that we did, that was irresponsible, because the opportunity cost was investing in our future, putting things in place. We were, to some extent, never see come see as a nation. Look, I haven't necessarily gotten into the details, but look what happened to Floyd Mayweather. So, I really hope that more people will pay attention to what we are going through now. But I guess maybe this is one of the reasons why the politicians don't want to admit it directly. But if more people paid attention to what we are going through now and how things are now, perhaps there will be sufficient motivation in order to amass enough societal will to ensure that we do not have a third period. Because there was a time with the NAR, then there's now, and if we squander whatever we could get from any energy deals moving forward, we'll just be pushing back the eventual austerity that we are so desperate to avoid by putting good money behind bad, essentially. Let's take a break. I'll be joined by our usual Friday contributor and continuing conversations. Stay tuned. This is Talking About the WSN. We'll be right back after this.
Are you driven, ambitious, and ready to earn? WESN, the content capital, is expanding, and we're looking for dynamic media sales executives to join our team. Sell powerful advertising solutions across television, digital, and social media platforms, and help brands tell their story. If you have strong communication skills, a passion for sales, and the drive to succeed, join WESN today. Send your CV to marketing@wsncc.com or WhatsApp 68-61662 and start building your future.
Something very important, there is an intrinsic neurotrophic factor that is released myokines, that is some peptides that we have in our muscle that produce neuromodulation and increase that peptide in the brain to increase the neurocognitive of the brain.
I'm glad you said that, right. So exercise has an important part to play in the aging brain. As we get older, our gray matter does shrink, we have reduction of synapses, but exercise is shown to actually improve our cognitive functioning.
Totally.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, WESN Content Capital.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Nah, you don't need to register nothing. You don't need, we can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
They believe in different criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
I'm back here and talk about the WSND Content Capital Show. Michael Small joined, of course, on a Friday with the one and only Ashraf Ali, a man of many experiences. Ashraf, good morning.
Good morning, Sean. Well, I hope you had a good Easter. I cannot say I see the same for some family members, for other persons.
Yes, that is. I'll just say this: the example in my life that will always stand out is we had someone here at WESN that only worked here for a short time, but we found out that he was working on the road, died in a manner of which I don't fully understand, to be honest, because it seemed like such a benign situation. Yeah. And it was just one of those moments where if you dwell on it too much, your daily life just naturally will be affected, because you're like, how could I enjoy something when I know that this happened, right? And much less now for a family to have to deal with the tragedy that we saw in Tobago in the manner that we saw it. Because one of the things is, I guess, for them, Tobago now is not going to ever really be a happy place, I would imagine.
I do think in some situations dealing with trauma of that nature, beaches alone might not, that might put a beach, so you have to look at it from this perspective. A beach, the word vacation, it will trigger a lot of things across here. But one of the things that we were discussing on, and there's a lot of conversation coming out of it now, safety on the seas when it comes to leisure crafts, persons doing sporting activities or leisure, and we have users of the beaches. There are regulations.
Yes.
And we only bring these things up to speed, up to the forefront, and start to speak about the legislation and speak about the safety requirements and the what is there, whether it is efficient or not, when a tragedy of this nature takes place. And I'm simply saying, why do we have to wait for the ultimate tragedy, the loss of lives, for us to revisit and understand the risk associated with these type of events?
My concern, though, because they already have laws on the books, so even yesterday I was like, look, the solution is not to say we need stricter laws in the sense of, well, if you break the law, you'll have harsher penalties. In my mind, similar to road traffic violations, the first thing is enforcement. In order to, right, if you enforce it and then the penalties are minor and they don't care about the penalties, then you up the penalty, right, if they keep breaking the rule. But we don't know if that's the case, because I guess, and this is one of those things where you wouldn't necessarily want to have to devote resources to enforce things like this. But unfortunately, and I don't know, maybe if this could be like a situation where you get SRPs to just monitor these types of activities, or a special unit of the Coast Guard.
Then there lies the issue. There should have been an anticipation or expectation over the Easter period. They will have more activities on the beaches, right, in and around the beaches, and water activities. I don't believe that there should be a ban holistically across the board for the use of jet skis, right? I mean, that is being very extreme. Regulating it is important, because if there are buffer areas where you're not supposed to go into, and you're not supposed to utilize the jet skis in a particular area, then you are held responsible for that area. And providers of jet skis and the bodies who are responsible for that water area, that area, or that park in that area, they should be the ones to put measures in place to, one, prevent individuals who may be inexperienced in the use of jet skis, or even the experienced one who want to take it to a different level, because of these experienced ones who want to take it to different levels with jet skis, and do all kind of stuff with it, encroaching on the areas that persons have to bathe. There was a markation, and the markation indicated that this is a bathing zone. Accidents do happen. I'm not saying an accident cannot happen, right? but it could have been prevented.
Well, the problem with this case is I don't think, and it's not as though, video has come out, so I don't know exactly where the family was and where the jet ski was. But based on how it's described and what I know of the situation, because of course I've been to Pigeon Point before,
yes.
I wouldn't say that I've worked at a dive shop, but I have for any significant period of time. But I have worked very little bit at a dive shop, so I experienced what at least one professional business operating jet skis, how they would manage that situation, right? And I mean, a couple of times I've gone on a jet ski in that area.
Yeah.
And it's not that hard to avoid the bathers, to be honest. It really isn't. The waters aren't that rough. It's not as though you're trying to avoid big waves, so you're coming into the bay, closer to the bay. That whole area, it's relatively placid and flat. And I'm talking Pigeon Point and beyond, right? It is the easiest thing in the world to just go out wider. You don't even have to worry about being in deep water, because the water for quite some distance is shallow. So I can't reasonably assume this was a genuine accident.
No. That was an accident in there's an accident. In any event, it's an accident.
Yes.
However, the accident was as a result of, I don't want to use the word very harsh, but I would. Negligent on part of the
That's how it seems.
Yes, negligence on part of the user.
And it didn't help that he ran.
Well, it didn't help. I don't know the circumstances why he ran.
Yeah.
Why he ran, but that the police will investigate that and have to investigate and determine whatever has to be dealt with in respect to that. But what I'm showing is that the level of experience. You said you had some experience working.
Just a little bit, just a few days.
No, but having knowledge of the area is one, and that is very important. I'm not blaming any dive shop here, and I'm not blaming anybody with the owners of any jet skis. But what I'm saying is that you need to understand the risk associated with giving individuals who have inexperience or even experienced individuals need to be told, you cannot go X, Y, and Z because they're of the opinion that because I'm an experienced jet skier, I have more control of it. It is the same thing when you have accidents on the roads of Trinidad and Tobago. When you look at the persons who, or if our data show, there is a large portion of the accidents are caused by drivers who have experience on the road, not young drivers alone. So you just can't go and blame young drivers and say it's young drivers causing the accidents. We're talking about experienced drivers who should know better, who have more experience on the road and still take any type of risk because they believe that they are experienced.
And the thing with watercraft is, you have less minute control than a car. Because depending on, while I'll say it's placid, they could still have some sort of undulation in the water. You could rise up the water. Like there are moments where with a craft, you don't just stop on a dime. I do wonder if the operator was attempting to, hey, look how cool I am. I could come right next to you and splash you with water, some nonsense like that. That is just pure speculation on my part, right?
But over the Easter weekend, I went up the North Coast. Even in Maracas Beach, you see vessels, you see a normal pirogue pulling these floating rafts with a number of persons on it, right?
I have never personally seen it
in close, and I'm saying that is still too close for bathers, because they still have to come into the shoreline to pick up bathers. Remember the incident that took place in Toko? In Last River some time ago, right, where a boat collided with a bather again, right, and somebody lost a life.
The thing is, because I also, just a couple of times, was able to enjoy, for pleasure, the use of a jet ski. But from the dive shop past Pigeon Point, I wasn't driving. The dive shop person was driving. Right? That whole area, certain areas, they're like, no. We will operate it from here to here. You get to operate it beyond that point, right? So, and when we move past Pigeon Point, we're close to the bathers, right? So there's a part of me that I'm like, look, you just need to, I guess, The problem was, at least in the past, you didn't have these incidents happening every year, right? And on some level, the businesses regulated themselves. The problem is you just need one person to make a bad decision, and then you have a tragedy like this. And what is the price of any single human life, right? And I agree with you, I don't think you need to ban it outright. But here's the thing that Tobago jet ski operators need to understand. Jet skis are not critical to the GDP of Tobago. You can ban it if the situation is allowed to get out of control. And it doesn't even need to be a death a year for it to be out of control in my mind. The THA can decide to just ban it. It's not going to harm Tobago that badly in terms overall, but it'll harm those businesses if they're not careful.
So then those businesses have to ensure that whoever is utilizing their jet skis or within that space is operating the device within a reasonable or responsible manner. And this is where I am saying that if there's a buffer area for...
Well, they're supposed to be, in a sense.
Right. If there was a buffer area for children, for bathers, there should always be a buffer zone where the jet ski should not even... And that area, in my opinion, should have been monitored to ensure that those persons doesn't break those areas.
So this is an interesting thing, because growing up in Tobago, I don't think I could even remember as a child seeing lifeguards at Stobie. I know there was always a lifeguard tower, but I don't always remember noticing one. It was only when going to Maracas, I was like, oh, we have lifeguards, right? And I can't remember if Pigeon Point ever had lifeguards again when I was growing up, and I don't know what it is now. But the point is, you know, in Maracas, part of their duties is to actively ensure people do not bathe in the areas that is deemed unsafe, right? And you need someone not just to, in case someone has left, because Pigeon Point, you know, it's so calm and placid, you're just not going to have the same kind of emergencies for swimmers that you're going to have in, say, Maracas or some other rougher beach. But you still need someone to monitor the situation because, and this, I'm not saying this is what happened in this case, but I think you said it right. You need a buffer, because what we have is essentially there's a line, kind of like a fenced area, but with buoys or what have you, right, and rope, right. The problem, of course, is people could maybe come too close because it's just a line. You need a buffer to say bathers don't go beyond this point and jet skis don't come closer to this point, so that even if there's a genuine mistake, the buffer then now could compensate for the mistake. But you need someone to monitor that, to kind of ensure that no one decides, hey, I'm a big man and I could do what I want. And you know how that goes.
And that brings back to the same thing we've been discussing over a regular period. We keep having to police people, right? Because we don't have the level of responsibility that we expect persons to have. So no matter what we do...
Not saying that the family, we're not describing the family in this way, right?
Yes. The level of responsibility for persons utilizing devices of this nature.
Yes.
No.
I mean, it is something, right? You don't get a license to operate a jet ski.
You don't. But at the same time, I am saying that I am hopeful that the unfortunate tragedy of this family, that it does not go unnoticed in the context that no family else, no additional family should have to face this, go through this situation again, because we need to put measures in place, not only in Tobago, but even in Trinidad at the same time.
Well, yes, what you described in Maracas, that is just asking for...
These are potential hazards and risks that we take, and there are accidents in the waiting. And we cannot afford to, when another incident of this nature takes place, right? For the tragedy of an unfortunate death again, to say, okay, well, we keep talking about it over and over, right? And just to piggyback off it, I heard the Minister of Works and Transport is indicating that there needs to be much more measures in place for road safety and road awareness. Mm-hmm. How much time will we keep on saying it?
Well, I hate to say this, but you might be surprised how, despite the best efforts throughout all media channels, a lot of public notices whether from government agencies or even private businesses, are not inseminated, if it's not word of mouth viral or social media viral, it seemingly is very difficult to disseminate information to the entirety of the general public. You'll get some just by default. But the problem is these kind of things, some is not enough. So you need all.
So that's what I'm saying. So I am in agreement. So that I'm saying. So just to bring it, I am in agreement with the direction of the minister, and I expect the Minister of Homeland Security will be, because it's enforcement, going with this, because you are getting. I have seen some type of drive, and I'm asking, these drivers really seriously understand how they're driving? Come on, look at this incident where I saw a driver. Yes, you put on your indicator, but on your left-hand side of you, it's a trailer. It is, the driver is up on this height, and you are here.
Yes.
Putting on your indicator is not going to help.
I might have told you this before, but I remember I was coming from some retreats in the country, and we were driving. It was basically a 2-lane highway situation, or somebody was looking to overtake, right? I believe it was 2 lanes, because the car next to us, the driver literally, he's not directly next to us, but his trunk is next to our bonnet. It's next to our engine block, right? He decided to turn into our lane, thereby almost hitting us. Then he turned on his indicator. Then he turned his head to look. The last thing he did was look to see if the way was clear. The first thing he did was make the move in order to come into our lane. And luckily, the old priest who was driving the car had the reflexes, and there was room for us to essentially go halfway off the road to avoid being hit ourselves. Now, we weren't necessarily going that fast, but...
You had a priest in the vehicle too?
It was a retreat.
Okay, so I guess...
Let's not get hung up on...
I guess the
let's not get...
The Lord was in your favor.
Yes, yes.
I'm not getting hung up. It's just that there are certain things that you say, hey, thank Lord, because you don't know how you get away from this.
To some extent, it's true, because... Again, it's not as though, I don't know if he liked to drive fast in his youth, but it wasn't as though he was a race car driver anymore, man, you know?
So when we keep beating up on the police for law enforcement on the roads, I mean, we could beat up on them a little bit now and then, right? I have no problem with that, because sometimes they do, but when you look at how trivial some of these accidents are, when I say trivial, is trivial in the context of, you know, you shouldn't be making them type of drive.
Well, consider this, because the THA is essentially a different model of local government, right? Yeah. Of course, the situation is of a slightly different scale, not necessarily in terms of size, but just because it's a separate island, right? And the THA, part of what they want is the ability to make local laws. Because right now, they don't have a way to go after boat operators or jet ski operators that kind of breach the perimeter of the bathers. I imagine the individual, he was arrested because of the results. There might be criminal charges for the death of the child. But let's just say you had reckless operators, right, who constantly breach the boundary of where boats and jet skis are not supposed to go. Once no one is harmed, seemingly, there's no law that they could go after these people. So the Chief Secretary is saying, well, we could pursue it in civil court, not necessarily in criminal court for those general cases, right? But I do wonder if not only, at least for things like this, right, there should be some amount of capacity for the THA to make their own ordinances. And yes, I know that there can be cons with that, but hey, at the end of the day, do we really want Parliament to have to be like, yes, so in Pigeon Points, there's a blah, 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 right? And perhaps this could be an example, an argument for saying local government bodies for certain public safety things on that minute scale.
No.
Because I do imagine it's one thing for Parliament and the law to monitor the highways, but there are also situations in minor side roads and stuff like that. Where the people who are there might be better informed to say, this is, you know.
There are possibilities for that. and I can bring put an example that they may even could consider. I don't know what would be the long-term legality with respect to that. I guess they would discuss that with their legal, from a legal perspective. But during Carnival period, there are specific rules, specific laws generated between the Carnival period where do's and don'ts. And there should be, for Easter, where there's a heightened, level of activities within the beaches in Tobago, and in Trinidad, probably they can even consider over the Easter, you're putting some sort of regulation.
You can say any holiday.
Any holiday, putting some sort of regulations with respect to the use of the beaches and how you do it. There are ways to do it. It does not have to be a holistic law throughout the year. It could be specifically for a period to deal with it, right? And I think because it will give an impact, and persons will have to operate within some level of regulation. Whether they adhere to it now is another question, because we always have the issue of enforcement of it. But because we keep having incidents, we just jump to having regulation. But when we have regulation, it is of no use if we don't have enforcement.
Yes.
So we have to work both of them together.
Well, this is why I said earlier, I don't know if you get specially recruited SRPs with training to handle this, or if lifeguards are enough, or if a special Coast Guard unit is enough. But I feel as though, or a pirogue breaks the perimeter for summers. You need someone to be able to jump on their own jet ski to race after that guy and to find him or whatever.
The flat bottom boats in Tobago, is there any I do not know, so I am just throwing this question out.
Let's just say that party boat operators in Tobago, I can't speak for the big party boats in Trinidad, but those that operate around Nylon Pool, No Man's Land and stuff, there are certain gray areas. Let's just say that. And
there again, we ask the question, the level of regulation, your number of persons that can vote on a particular boat. Is this boat
there was one bar sank a few months ago. I can't remember.
Right. So these are things that we have to do when it comes to tourism. Because I am not talking about just natural. I'm talking about tourism from this perspective. I'm not targeting anyone. If you want to encourage persons to come and be a part of your tourism, you have to understand tourism has a component of security, because security and safety with respect to it.
Professionalism.
Yes, right? That is a conversation by itself.
No, but in terms of safety, part of professionalism is not being it's fine, we's big people, we could do what we want.
I had a very nice experience when I went up the island. We went snorkeling. I can swim. I am not I would not put myself out and go way beyond where I can go.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone had to wear the vest when we came out to snorkel. And the persons, the operators, they were at strategic locations, and they indicate anyone who having any distress, if you feel they have any distress, just go back to the lifeline and we carry back to the thing. No fancy. Who want to go and snorkel and who feel they're competent and they're able to do it, you go right ahead. But they made sure that absolutely no one is injured on their watch, because they have a responsibility, because this is their tourism brand.
Well, ironically, I can't remember if this was the tract I was taking with the jet ski incident yesterday, but even before I started talking about needing to be more professional as a society if we want tourism to matter. Because you know how it is, hey, why are you so scared? Da, 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 da. It's like, no, it's not about scared. It's like, listen, some people might not be comfortable, so you let them know it's okay to be scared, and we have all these safety procedures to help you enjoy your time and feel safe, no matter how. It's not about looking like a wimp now, because we have seen freak accidents.
And they were specific. We don't care if you was the best swimmer home. When you are here, you abide by my rules, because you are not to get injured when we have you out there, because they have a brand and a reputation to uphold.
To be fair to our local Tobagonian operators, I have heard those things locally before, and to me that's a sign of, hey, we're not about that life of taking risks and saying we're big people, and no. Some people might think, why are you so serious for? Right? We just had to have a good time. Take it on, and she's like, no. Because, and we do have people of that level, we just need it to be more pervasive throughout the wider society to understand, hey, for this industry to work, there can be zero mistakes. One of the best things about Carl is we've never had a plane crash and have a mass casualty event with Carl, right? But no, it's not by accident. It is not by accident. Carl knows, hey, we're not about that life of cutting margins to try to make profit, unlike some parts of the airline industry, right? We're not about that life. And I mean, granted, the scope of operations are smaller, right? So there's less risk, you know, percentage-wise, you know, statistically speaking. But it's still a lot of concerted effort with regards to maintenance and safety, right? From BWIA to CAL, because they know they cannot afford a single accident.
So the August-July vacation is coming up annually, as we know. There is going to be some events, and we know Tobago normally will have the carnival in October. Who knows, they may have it again, with a number of persons going to the island of Tobago again and utilizing the beaches. So I am hopeful that this incident, as unfortunate as it is not left for the 7-day wonder that we have and all the talk shop, that something should be put in place to avoid any other family having to suffer with this tragic situation that this family has to go through. And I hope that the death of this child is not just washed away, literally washed away, and something happened to somebody else. Something has to be put in place that this death is not just a normal death. It means something going further for persons who, in our tourism society, tourism sector, because this doesn't augur well for us when it comes to tourism. Right? When you have a child bathing in a safe zone.
And it's not just international, it's domestic tourism as well. I think the Chief Secretary, his response so far, I'm liking it, right? You know, I guess you have to balance off the emotional urgency with responsible judgment, right? And I don't think he's done anything responsible. So I'm appreciating his response, giving it the weight that it so deserves. The one thing is bigger picture, I do feel, because there's always talks about, hey, we need a marina here and we need a this there. And with regards to various aquatic industries, perhaps we also need to look at, hey, what are the actual regulations and protocols and laws that govern all of these things? Not just, you know, jet skis by public beaches, but also with regards to yachts, with regards to marinas, with regards to all sorts of maritime activities, like the party boats, like the down the islands boats, right? The charter boats, right? In order to ensure, like, let's not fix one corner and be ignorant about other loopholes and other deficiencies, and it's only when we have another tragedy in some other corner we run to fix it.
And the other tragedy is the fisherman who fell off the rocks and died. You're going rock fishing, John, in those areas. Why you don't have an life vest?
I find not just that. Not just that. There's also the fact that we have fishermen that don't know how to swim.
Fair enough.
Right?
And we have plenty persons in Trinidad and Tobago. We are an island who can't swim. So that's another.
We are an island that educates 90-something% of our population, and we are ignorant of our own functional illiterates. And we are a twin island nation where we have far too many people that their swimming ability is so limited that they would be in danger if they end up in the water. And I find that to not be a safe situation.
So then, there are safety measures you put in place. One, if you know you're going to fish on a rock, which is a risk by itself, because rock fishing on those areas is very dangerous, get a safety vest, a life vest to put on.
See, sometimes it might not help you if you get knocked out and you fall in the water the wrong way.
That is okay.
No, if you fall face first into the water, you're floating, but you're unconscious and you can't breathe. So
then you can't have control of everything, but you made sure that you have your safety vest, right?
Or you just certain areas, it's like, hey, how about you all just don't fish here?
I can't tell anyone where to go and where not to fish.
I think with regards to a situation that is not safe for the public to be in, I think you can reasonably, as a government, say, hey, you want to fish on that solid ground over there, right? Not on these angled, slippery rocks with moss and moisture.
At the end of the day, we take a lot of risk, right? A lot of persons don't see the risk because 9 out of 10 times they go, they have fished in those areas, and nothing came out of it. It just take one. One incident.
It's the same thing what you're saying with road traffic,
right? And the same thing we talk about when we have hikers, right? And all of these activities. I'm saying that that we have to be very conscious that there are risks associated with it. If you're not experienced in certain things, please listen to the professionals.
Ironically, and you might not. And I'll close with this. People might not think this might be worthy of their attention. But if forested areas were regularly patrolled and had rescue plans and had a more defense force presence, that is also a form of security training.
Yes.
In case anything happens, now they're accustomed with the terrain. Now they know how to move a lot easier. You know, it is much well known. And they could be part of the rescue apparatus even more readily than they already are. Same thing for any coastal stuff in the Coast Guard. If we had regular small boat patrols and monitoring of different situations, then they will have up-to-date awareness of all of the minor details of our coast. So when time comes now to secure our coast, they have a lot more functional experience. And they will be more available to conduct any sort of rescue operations. But hey, what do I know? I'm just the talking head on TV. That's the security expert to my right. But let's go now with the time that we have left for the day. You know, it just won't be a talking point with Ashraf Ali, and we're not going to talk about national security. Because there have been a few articles with regards to comments from different aspects. DCP Martin, of course, lamenting the murder rate ongoing, and she kind of said all the things that you're supposed to say. The problem is it's already been said so many times that I get it. She can't say anything else, but with the whole, yes, things will get better and we have a plan or whatever, but you're not actually saying anything new, right? But the minister said something that I found very interesting, because at least the headline or the report is that he was asking or urging the public to help in the fight against crime. And my issue is, that's cute, but you're not necessarily doing anything to help the police service and other arms of law enforcement regain trust with the public, but you want the public to be willing to have faith in law enforcement and engage with law enforcement and to assist law enforcement.
So my take on it is, the minister is making a public outcry, a call, I should say, not outcry, a call to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and I expect that the law-abiding citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to work together in the fighting against crime. Right? That is how my take on it. Might be the same language that you're using, but that's the synopsis of what it is. It is nothing new, and it has always been a cry, a plea, I should say, where you ask the citizens to support. No matter who was the minister who made that call or make that plea, it's a plea. If we get personal in terms of who is the messenger, is where the issue will become very critical.
Well, here's why I'm looking at it differently than, say, his predecessor. Because when former Minister Hines might have said something like this, people's cynical response would be, but hey, you want us to help you, but you're doing nothing, so what are we going to help you with, right? But my issue with Alexander is, because at least with Hines, he didn't do anything that to me seemed directly contradictory. You want the public to help you, but when various stakeholders in the public are saying, that's nice, but trust and confidence is low, so why don't you maybe try this body camera thing?
So we come back to the body camera, and that is why I say the message of the messenger. Who is responsible for public safety or dealing with crime? Who?
In what term?
Because
I guess with regards to the cabinet, technically it's the Minister of Homeland Security.
No, it is not.
Or who is it?
And when persons made a comment about the former minister, I just simply laugh. The minister is not responsible for crime.
Well, that's why I said, with regards to the cabinet, and as far as the cabinet has responsibilities, it will be the minister.
It will be the commissioner of police.
Right, so with regards to overall, yes.
The office of the commissioner of police, and I want to remove it from the individual now, because I don't want to make it appear that I'm targeting anyone else specifically. The office of the commissioner of police is responsible for public safety and security and the crimes in Trinidad and Tobago. Trust and confidence has nothing to do with the minister. If you want trust and confidence in the office of the Minister of Homeland Security, we can target the office of the Minister of Homeland Security or previously the office of the minister. This is my views, yeah? Right? So it would be unfair in my book to chastise the minister when his portfolio lies outside of another portfolio. Trust and confidence in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is the responsibility of the organization of the police service. The police service has to deal with trust and confidence. So here's where it becomes very controversial, or there's a lot of give and take on it. The minister is making a plea on behalf of the citizens to support the police. Is the police service extending that olive branch to the citizens for them to build trust and confidence?
You see, there's two holes with your stance, because you are correct. In general, you are correct. That is how the relationship is supposed to work. And the commissioner is responsible for those things directly. However, in government, there is the person who is in charge, and then there's the person that allocates the resources from the Ministry of Finance. So on some level, and because we're speaking about things like equipment, that is partially dependent on budgets. That's why when there's concerns that say the DPP's office is being underfunded, a cabinet does have levels of control even over independent institutions because they control the finances afforded to those institutions. But then, on top of that, so with regards to body cameras, you can't put it all on the commissioner alone. Unless the government says, we allocated however much money for body cameras and he just decided not to buy it, right? Or we bought the body cameras for him and he decided not to use it. You can't put it on the commissioner alone. But then there's also the context of who the minister is and how he has involved himself currently into the equation. Because he, before the commissioner, basically made the statement, body armor over body cameras, which again, I never understood why we only could have one and not both. We're not talking about, $5 billion or $10 billion here, right? They're saying, break the budget. But also, unlike the former ministers of national security, which is Fitzgerald Hines, and you could even say for his 5 weeks, Marv Gonzalez, because I do believe he has some experience, I think, with the police. In both of them, though, are lawyers. So their main career and their immediate past were as lawyers or politicians. The current minister's immediate experience that he now came from was in the police service, was potentially one of the most popular officers and biggest public figures in the police service, and he spoke on the body camera issue. seemingly in defiance of the trust and confidence statistics. So not necessarily fully, but he is not as removed, in part because of how he has operated as minister from the police service as his predecessors. So while, yes, it's supposed to be that the Minister of Homeland Security, that the commissioner is independent, the minister has his certain lanes, but he and the commissioner have been like this, especially on this issue, right? We don't necessarily know, is it the commissioner taking the minister's lead or the minister taking the commissioner's lead and supporting his commissioner? Because it could be that one of them is not 100% all in on not getting any body cameras, right? It could just be that one is backing up the other, but we don't know which one. But the problem is, with regards to the public, neither of them have satisfactorily said, we're going to try to get body cameras, this might be the issues, this might be the whole of what have you, right? And he is involved in that. It's not the commissioner alone. So for him now to give a plea to the public, he has already crossed the line of involving himself more directly with the police. So for him now to make the appeal to the public, unfortunately, the public perception is going to be, yeah, but when you're ready, you don't care about doing anything to help the situation. So why must we now kind of give law enforcement the benefit of the doubt when you're not even trying to rectify it?
So that statement is not new. Is not new. This a statement of the statement of it.
I don't know if any minister has ever directly said anything to imply body cameras are not a priority.
No, you are speaking about two different statements. You were speaking two different things here. You have just changed the conversation to the body cameras.
Yes, but the point of the argument for the body cameras is literally the trust and confidence in service.
It is not. Your statement that we were discussing initially, and I see you're coming to two different directions.
But I think the two, I understand that they're different topics, but I believe that those topics are linked, linked directly.
It could be linked it could be linked, but our discussion went on two directions. I was dealing specifically with the statement of asking for the public support. However, I'm saying to you, I can understand where because you brought in the issue of the body camera. So because you brought in the issue of the body camera with respect to this conversation, we'll have some, I will give my point of view on it.
If the public doesn't have trust and confidence, why then can you then say, yeah, but support us anyway? Yes.
But is it trust and confidence? Is trust and confidence based only on body cameras alone? And that is one aspect of trust and confidence. The body cameras has been for some time now an issue of a topic of conversation where the public is saying that we'll have more confidence if we have body cameras. I am all for the body cameras. I am all for the body cameras. But I'm still, I did in fact mention this when we were having a discussion with the body cameras. Having the body cameras alone will not build trust and confidence. How you use the body cameras, how it is operationalized, and how you bring that information to the table.
I understand that, right? But that's why I said public perception.
Yes.
Because I understand that's not going to solve the problem. Implementation is a big part of it. And you also probably need other things outside of the body cameras totally. Because you could have the body cameras and have all of the procedures behind it and reveal the footage to the public, and it still might not be enough depending on if they have other issues. So you need also to put things in place for that. But the problem is, you know how public narratives will go. They will go to the quick thing, and the quick thing is the lack of body cameras and the seeming lack of agency to get it would be an indicator to at least some in the public that the police service and the Minister of Homeland Security aren't really trying to improve the trust and confidence in the service. So why are you asking me now to help you when you don't care about my concerns, whoever Joe Public is?
Right. So I will take that from that perspective that you're bringing across. So we will take that. Yes, it can come across like that. Public perception has always been and will continue to be something driving force in all other things.
I've said this before, and I think I've said it to you. the game of public relations is not fair.
It is not, and I agree.
And I understand if you don't like it because it's not fair, but it is what it is. No. You still have to deal with it.
At the end of the day, sometimes public perception and public views and opinions help strengthen you and strengthen what you do, because if you have the opinion that whatever you're doing is the right thing and nobody's complaining about it, nobody's giving you a different perspective, you're just going around believing that I always right and I always doing everything right. And sometimes public perception as well as public opinion and criticism about what you're doing is relevant and could allow you to improve what you're doing. I don't see anything wrong, honestly speaking, I don't see anything wrong with the statement. We have, during the course of our, continue working in the organization, and when we have several town meetings, we have several engagement with the public, we keep asking, and even as a media ambassador, I sit here and say that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is asking for you to support us. It's a cry, it's a plea, and we keep doing it.
Case in point. Because I've supported those statements, right? And what does some of the callers say? Why must we do your job for you? And part of it is, if they don't have faith in the police, then they won't fully understand what reasonably is the police's roles and the limitation of their role.
That is why I keep saying, in order to build trust and confidence, the body camera is one aspect of it. It may be a very significant part of it in the perception of the public because of the number of incidents where the level of transparency is questionable in certain circumstances.
Well, the issue is that the body camera aspect seems to be straightforward. It's not as though you have a cultural thing or a management shift or a whole set of... Because even with regards to policy and regulations on the use of body cameras, it's... granted, revealing footage to the public, that might be where the current administration might feel as though it's difficult. And I'm not saying it's not complex, but at least instituting some kind of body camera policy seemingly is a more straightforward solution compared to trying to figure out how to discipline officers who are in direct contravention of certain standing orders of, hey, you can report anything anyway, and how to deal with the public and customer service and stuff like that. And the body cameras will ironically help with some of those more tricky areas in theory.
So I understand where you're going with it.
So the public, why not do it?
So but the thing about it is that the way the narrative normally being pushed is that we don't have body cameras. The truth is that you have body cameras. But what little they have and what little they have in use, has it made any significant change in trust and confidence in the public? And I'm saying it may not have made any significant change because it's how we use body cameras. We talk about another area we talk about when we talk about customer service, which is much more important because you engage on a regular basis with the public. How you speak to the public, how you engage with the public, how you treat with the public when they commit offenses. Right, we have seen videos of very unprofessional conduct with police officers, some warranted and some unwarranted in my view, because again, it's human nature, it's humans you're dealing with, and sometimes being a professional, you have to always remember that you have to be professional at all times. I'm not saying that the officers are more at fault, but sometimes they may go beyond falter a little bit. But customer service and how we treat with citizens on a regular basis. So if you want to bring trust and confidence back into the police service or increase the trust and confidence, it is not about body cameras alone. It may be the big ticket question on a lot of persons, but simply interacting with the public and how you interact with the public, that I say is a big ticket issue, because a lot of incidents you see of the interaction between the public and the police, it don't look good on a video. And I'm just using the video that is posted there, which is where the public perception comes from.
And ironically, at least in some, there are examples of body cameras kind of as a passive deterrent, helping that. But if the footage is always kept away from the public, the utility of the body cameras will be limited, yes.
So that is where I am saying, if you want to build trust and confidence, that is where the body cameras can assist assist, because it will give a different narrative, a different viewpoint of that same engagement, where social media is only the one giving it.
This is the thing, and I've said this before, and I haven't said it in a while, and I've said this for politicians, but the police also need to understand this as well. Transparency can work for you. Think about it, right? In theory, not all the footage is going to be of police officers doing the wrong thing.
Obviously.
They have channels on YouTube that shows interactions where they have bad police, but some of those channels, they show the full video, and then they'll be like, yes, the officer came in and he was wrong, but when the sergeant came in, the sergeant now was professional and cleaned up the situation and handled it the right way and rectified the situation for the civilian, and so on and so on. So it also shows the good, right? And ironically, by essentially having this passive approach, well, we don't, it's too expensive, and, we like to encourage officers to wear body cameras and stuff like that. To have this passive approach, right? I think subconsciously the public are like, so wait, is it that you're afraid that it'll only be negative footage? Is that the expectations of police leadership and the cabinet, that the footage from body cameras is going to be negative? But we know that there are positive stories with regards to police, because every now and then it actually reaches the media, and we get people either in an article voicing their appreciation of something police officers did for them, or letters to the editor of something that police officers did for them. And one of the benefits of body cameras, if you're willing to show footage, obviously if it's certain sensitive things, you should never show, right? But one of the benefits is you could also show positive interactions of when things went right. I think the other day I saw something where some police officers dealt with a couple of belligerent citizens in America, and at no point in time did the police officers do anything disrespectful, despite being heavily disrespected, right? But we need to move on quick to wrap this up. I'll say this though, it's the catch is the minister, as Ashraf is pointing out, he's actually not wrong. So what is he supposed to say on the topic, even if he himself might have put himself in a position where not a lot of people would want to hear it from him? There's one quote that I want to say that he said, the society can be confusing as far as I can see. If you take harsh measures, they have issue with it. If you take any measures at all, they have an issue with it. People have to start waiting to become victims to see the need to assist. Because now it's, maybe his sentiment could be a bit more coherent, but I think the point is, if we do something about it on our own, you have an issue.
Sean?
If you're not willing to help us though, what are we supposed to do?
Minister Alexander, I think that is about the clearest you have been making statements for the longest while.
Jesus, because I wasn't that clear.
No, I just love my minister. I don't care. All I can say one, because he's a police officer, and I don't care who say anything about it. I have my bias towards him, right? So this is where my bias is. He's a police officer, and I have my biases towards police officers, right? A lot of persons wouldn't know what we going through or what we went through, so I'm biased towards him in terms of that. And then the other thing about it, he was one of my senior officers when I was in the division, right? And he is a very, I wouldn't say I wouldn't use the word nice, right? He supports his team, right? So yes, so no matter how he comes across right now, people will forget that he is a police officer or was a police officer for a number of years, and treat him as a politician because they're biases towards politician and party.
Well, I mean, that is like I said, it's not fair, but that is the price.
That is the price he paid for to going across onto the political platform. At the same time, you will have persons who didn't like him as a police officer because of the biasness towards police officers and him personally, and forget that and forget everything that he is going to do or he is doing as a minister. So, in truth and the fact, it can happen to any person who in politics at this point in time when they try go from one point to the other. So, we may not like some of these statements, we may not fully understand some of these statements, but he's right. There's need for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to work together with the police. But at the same time, the police need to work together much more with the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, not keep on asking the citizens.
Because very recently, Wednesday, I saw a Vice News documentary on crime. He was one of the interviewed subjects, you know, and there was nothing he said that I disagreed with. And I very much appreciated, because he was pointing to, hey, yeah, my guys went on a gunfight last night. And the reporter's like, hey, look, the blood's still fresh.
Yeah.
Right? And the dangers that the police go through. And I do wonder if he has the experience, he knows what policing is. He knows what it takes. When he says things like, you need to deal with the community stuff too, because in his interview, he said stuff like that. Like, he knows that. But my only concern with him really is that his mindset is so tactical. Well, and also, there's the need for the wider cabinet to be engaged in some of these issues, because just because he knows that you need social programs, that's not his job. That's not the job of the police. I understand the police have police youth clubs, and I'm all for that. But at some point, there's a limit to what the police should do with regards to social programs, and what other agencies need to get involved with. Because we train people to be police. How many of them have training to be guidance counselors and the like? Like, that is not, that is, you don't have enough hours in a day to perfect all the crafts in the world. So there is that. But I will say this, one of the other things that helps with trust and confidence in police that I appreciate with this state of emergency more than the last one, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I mean this in all as positive as I can get. 2 more officers were detained under PDOs. Well, and what that tells me is this is not just a tool, hey, we're going after these drug dealers because we want to get the gang killings off the street. It's like, hey, we're going to make use of this now to deal with some of the issues in the service itself. So that does point to a wider view on crime and not just, the gangs, gangsters killing gangsters, gangsters killing gangsters.
Well, the statistics does speak for itself, that the crime, the murder rate has dropped. Minor, but
a little bit compared to last year.
But
it's still near 100, which is not good.
But here's my kind of argument for this, and I can't see it from a holistic perspective. I am comparing state of emergency to state of emergency. Sean, are we going to say that state of emergency is the only thing that we're going to work with? This can't be a comparison that we will be comfortable with. Yes, I could take the argument, I could agree that there is a decrease. Any decrease is a good decrease, but a decrease within a state of emergency. And I'm saying, so are we going to compare next year with a state of emergency? Or next 6 months? Because you can't compare state of emergency. State of emergency is a short-term measure. It cannot be a long-term measure. We need to have something to say. What is our long-term measure coming out of this SOA? Right? We haven't had anything to assess because we have been in state of emergencies. All right? Periods of state of emergencies since 2024 coming all the way down. So now, when we're out of state of emergency, what is going to be our plan to curb and arrest the crimes in Trinidad and Tobago? Because even in a state of emergency, 30 is still too much. 30 homicides is still too much.
I think here's the thing. Because, of course, the modus operandi is, let's not reveal anything, we don't want criminals to know anything. Despite the fact that you know that on some levels, the criminals figure it out, they have their own intelligence and the like. You don't reveal everything, but one of the reasons why you reveal some things to the public, certain general philosophies and whatever, one is to give the public, it's not just enough to have trust in the police, you also have to have trust in the direction of things are going. So then the public will be able to lean in that direction with you and help you in more meaningful ways. So if you have a plan and you have a version of it that you can present to the public, then they will know this is what I'm supporting. This is what's different than last time. Especially since, unfortunately, the perception that the police carries, it's the same people. So you're trying to convince us, like, yes, I understand it's the same people, but we're different. Well, it's not different people.
Yeah.
So you have to show we're moving differently. And by giving people something to work towards with regards to, hey, you need help? Okay, I could help you with this because I know what your intentions are. And now I could try and figure out what I could do for you, as opposed to just being in a vacuum where people have concerns about their safety, whether it is criminal reprisal or what have you, right? If there's something that they could work to, if there's a cause, but a cause can't just be, well, I am for something and there's no organization behind it.
So that's why I keep on saying trust and confidence is not one aspect alone.
Mm-hmm.
It has multiple factors to build trust and confidence. Recently, there was a whole media article on a communique came out of the police service that they're going to deal with smoking and marijuana. Cigarettes. So, okay, so then my question is that all of this we put out to help, to show that that the organization is taking the laws seriously. Where's our statistics when it comes to that?
I think
since that time to now, has anybody been arrested?
Not just
arrested.
When we're asking what is the plan to deal with drug smuggling and drug dealing and shooting, and you want to talk about, well, FULs, who doesn't get an FUL, and how are we going to deal with marijuana smoking in public and cigarette smoking in public? It's like, time out. You're telling us all of these Mickey Mouse things, but you can't tell us about the real things. We don't want to hear about smoking in public. Granted, I understand it's against the law, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't do anything about it, but when that's all you're saying, and you're leaving out the big stuff, the people ain't going to respond well to that.
But there are groups who feel that is important to them.
I understand that.
And that is how you build trust and confidence, because you're building trust and confidence in the pockets of individuals who want to be.
The problem is you're cherry picking who you're servicing. Don't be surprised if the big parts of the population is not going to be on board with just that.
They would not be on board, but at the same time, we have stakeholders across. You have stakeholders across the board.
Mm-hmm. But you see, also, it comes across as though this is your priority. Now we know it's not a priority, but that's how it comes across.
Exactly. So then, when you're looking at it, we look at what our priorities are. But at the end of the day, you have priorities in terms of order. And you deal with it, San Fernando.
All right, San Fernando, and then we take the comments to close. San Fernando, good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Mr. Ali.
Morning.
This incident in Tobago, I want to say to the parents of this child, firstly, I am truly sorry for your pain and your loss. And secondly, you need to get a good attorney and bring civil action against the THA, because they are the ones that operate that Stobie facility. Because in the absence of, in Trinidad and Tobago, we lack regulation and we lack enforcement for certain things. This issue is a long-standing issue. If you look at the boats, if you look at when you go to Stobie, and the behavior of those young men who operate, those boat operators, this has to stop. And because they have failed to put regulations in place and enforce these regulations, hit them in the pocket. The THA has to pay you all for your loss and your pain. It would not be sufficient because you have lost your child, but take them to court and let them pay. We have the Coast Guard and we have the police service. And if we had a proper riverine operations running, these are things that could have been prevented. We have the ability to do these things, but we just don't. They have a tourism secretary. You all cannot put regulations in place to regulate these reef boats and these jet ski operators. There was a situation some years ago with this same issue in Greendot, Sean, where those jet ski people were intermingling, especially on Granite Beach. They put up the barriers, the same with the floats and the rope, and they still were breaching and they had a couple of incidents. And the Grenada government said enough is enough, and they ban it outright. We are pressed on those public beaches in Grenada anymore. They banned it outright. And sometimes that is what is needed when you have a population that is indisciplined. And this is just indiscipline.
Caller, we're pressed for time.
In Tobago. Yes, so that's enough said, Sean. So have a good weekend, gentlemen.
Yes. All right, we'll take Mova quick. Hopefully this will be quick. Caller, you on here? Caller, you on here? Meet the TV quick. We don't have much time.
Yeah. Good morning.
Morning.
Sean. Good morning, Mr. Ali.
Morning.
First of all, I agree 100% with Mr. San Fernando that the family of that child should take the case to court. I was in Tobago about 2 or 3 years ago, and I was amazed that I noticed, I said, but how these people just renting out, just anybody who comes and willing to pay, jump on the jet ski and go. And I was like, but this can't be right. You don't know somebody's coming, you don't know nothing about the person, you don't know their abilities, but once you get money and they want to ride it for how many hours, just jump on it. Madness. But again, Sean, as I keep telling you, things like this will always happen in a country where from the beginning of our self-governance, we have not been governed properly, we have not been enforcing laws in this country from the beginning. Mr. Ali, sir, last week you said something that I would like to clarify. I told you, I said, I am simply fighting for my right under the Constitution to enjoy peace and quiet in my home. And you said, so what about the bar owners if they are not supposed to enjoy their property also? No. My question to you is, nighttime is for sleeping. It is internationally known, accepted, it is medically, it is scientifically understood that in the night people are supposed to sleep. There's medical science out there that says sleep is important for you to recharge because you have to get up in the morning, you have to go and drive a bus or max, you have to fly a plane, you have to go and deal, as a doctor, you might have to do surgery. You need a good night's rest. So I would like you to explain to me, when you say that the bars have a right to enjoy their property, tell me exactly what does that right entail? I would like to know that.
All right, we press for time. So if you have any more questions, you'll have to call in again next week. But I'll let Ashraf.
Yeah, I'll go next week.
Right. So with respect to that, is that they also have a legal requirement. They also have a documentation that they could enjoy their property. You have to balance it.
It's not about what's ethical. It's about the fact that legally.
So yes, I understand you have a constitutional right to enjoy your property, as Mova is indicating, but they also has a legal right to enjoy the property. Police is in the middle. Police cannot make a decision on both sides and say we can't take sides. We have to be very objective.
Now, on the other hand, I'll just say this quick. Not all situations with bars are created equal. So yes, you can make the argument that certain bars that are in residential areas and the like, right? It's not the same as other bars. That question came up with regards to the residents in Woodbrook, right? The problem is, does the police have the capacity, and that's what Ashraf was bringing up, to make judgment on the spot on that situation? In some cases, maybe, but I'm not an expert on the law, right? This is the thing, and I think I tried to say this yesterday, in the noise pollution situations, it's not all the same each time, and that's part of what makes it complex. All right, we have some comments to get through quick before we have to go. What's the facts behind this? I'm not entirely sure exactly why you're asking what's the facts behind this. And I don't know if it's maybe yesterday. With regards to CARICOM trade, right? I'll say this. I'm not an expert in trade. I get that, except for the fact that, as far as I'm aware, America is our biggest trading partner. CARICOM might be our second, or I believe I'm under the impression is our second. I'll say this. Global trade has a tendency of making adjustments in the face of difficulty. Just like what happened with regards to the war in Ukraine, and the fact that Europe was importing a lot of its energy from Russia, and all of a sudden, especially when the pipeline, I think it was Nord Stream, was hit, they had to make adjustments, economically speaking. And there was a lot of concern about how difficult it would be and the suffering in Europe. It did not take that long for them to figure it out. So with regards to trade, CARICOM could go the way of the dodo bird. We will probably figure something out, unless the relationship between our societies becomes so conflicted, like what happened with Canada and America over the tariff situation. Canadians went to social media to say they were no longer going to buy American products. If other island citizens say they're not going to pay for Trinidadian goods, well then the trade will dry up that way. But I don't expect CARICOM goes kaput and all of a sudden we'll stop. Because we import, as far as I'm aware, when St. Vincent had the volcano that blew, there were goods on the dock to be sent to Trinidad, right? And that's when we, for those who didn't know like myself, we don't even grow all of our ground provision that we consume. So when we say, oh, we have to eat local foods and change this, hey, we import some of that stuff too, right? So let's go in the next comment quick. Any other government may designate a minister. I understand. The problem is, so the commenter is questioning, well, bring out the fact that anyone can be designated. I think the question is, we don't necessarily know exactly what they mean by disinvited. What did Minister Sobers know with regards to the proceedings on the vote that was to take place? So did he not go to retreat knowing that there was a vote? Or was he not informed at all? Or was he told that he is disinvited and he can't go? A lot of the explanations we get that contradict the government's position also is unwilling to fill in those details, and I have issue with that. So it's kind of left up in the air. The one thing is, given that President Ali said that the vote, the procedure was fine, he didn't say what it was, so we can't assess what he means. But the fact that he was willing to do that, my perception is he is not automatically politically aligned with those agendas that are in conflict with our national agenda. Let's go to the next comment quick. What has been expressed so far is that the agenda did not explicitly detail the election, but it fell under the heading of listed agenda item concerning finance and governance. Minister Sobers had conflicting responses claiming the issue was not agenda, and then he was disinvited. I mean, yes, that you're correct there, right? So I want to hear more, because on some level, there is an issue still. You see, if CARICOM was like, we're doing this thing, please show up, and they didn't show up, then CARICOM did no wrong. But I'm not clear that's the case, and it wasn't just us, it was other countries. But notice, no one else could speak to the lack of presence of other countries, and what's interesting is Prime Minister Brown did not want to speak on it at all. We don't necessarily know who he's potentially protecting, or if it's the overall situation he doesn't want to explode in our faces. Next one. Had the Prime Minister and the UNC kept out of the internal political affairs of Venezuela, our relationship today would be to our benefit. The UNC branded the Venezuelan government narco-terrorists. All of this could be avoided by forward-looking foreign policy. There's a catch to that. If we didn't support America, we might not have gotten the OFAC licenses. Right? We don't know. It's seemingly America is engaged with Venezuela, and it's not fully reasonable to say that we definitely wouldn't have gotten the OFAC licenses, but that potentially was there. And the thing is, the Prime Minister would not have known how the situation unfolded when she had to make the decision to initially support America. So that kind of hindsight thinking, that is tricky. At the end of the day, we didn't know for sure how that. There were concerns that America would have fully invaded Venezuela. It would have been a whole
different ball game.
The way that I want to say it, yeah, different ball game. I can't say what I wanted to say. Let's go to the next comment quick. That's it, that's the last comment. All right, thanks to the commenters. I think some of the commenters might have been with regards to yesterday's episode, and of course some of it was from what I said this morning. Thanks to the callers. Yeah, it is what it is. I'll always say this, we need Parliament and then the people underneath Parliament to deal with noise pollution properly, but that's just one of many things I think needs to be dealt with properly. Thanks to Ash. Oh, sorry, Mr. San Fernando. I don't know if THA is the ones that could be held legally responsible for anything that happens in the water. Because when you said the government of Grenada, notice the government of Grenada is the national government of Grenada. The THA is a local government body that does not have the capacity to write law. Now the chief sec said that maybe they have to ban jet skis. I don't know in what capacity he said that, as if the THA could do it directly. And then there's the fact, who has jurisdiction on the water? It could be the national government technically has the responsibility and national agencies on the water, even though the THA technically owns Pigeon Point. It's one of those weird situations that I'm not necessarily sure.
So everybody, we go find out.
I guess we'll find out. But here's the thing: can you take civil action? I mean, if it's not the THA, then it will be the central government.
It's a possibility, but at the end of the day, the family have to make a decision whether or not they choose to. We have to respect that, right? But I do not think whatever decision that the family make to proceed or not to proceed with any civil action, that is their personal choice, changes the fact that this incident took place. And regulation and some measure has to be put in place for future actions, future incidents not to occur like this.
I think what Mr. San Fernando and Mova was pointing to is some sort of public incentive to force change. Well, it doesn't have to be a civil lawsuit. That is one way to do it, right? I have no problem if the family figures out the path to do that. That is the technically accurate. But also public outcry.
Yes.
The chief sec has the right response, but what about the I mean, apparently Tobago, it is a bad situation, and Tobago understand that, but then we need more, because as you pointed out, it is not just limited to Tobago alone, right? Similar things can and have happened on Trinidad waters as well. It's a national issue. Will the nation have the right amount of outcry and show the societal will to drive political will? All right, we have to go. Thanks, Ashraf, once again, folks. This is talking about the ICNTT Content Capital. Don't miss 10 questions coming up next at 10 a.m. with Andy Johnson. Do not miss it. Always some of the most interesting interviews on television in TNT today. Until then, we'll see you next week. Stay safe. Have a good day. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Don't forget, it's nice to be nice. Bye-bye.
WESN.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Are you driven, ambitious, and ready to earn? WESN, the content capital, is expanding, and we're looking for dynamic media sales executives to join our team. Sell powerful advertising solutions across television, digital, and social media platforms, and help brands tell their story. If you have strong communication skills, a passion for sales, and the drive to succeed, join WESN today. Send your CV to marketing@wsncc.com or WhatsApp 6861662 and start building your future.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan, and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, WESN Content Capital.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title, it's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
China, of course, is pursuing a different path, one more driven by state rather than market. But it's important to note that this isn't just racing against other countries now. We're seeing the moon evolve into very much a new marketplace driven by private competition.
All right, Kemi, very interesting stuff. Thank you very much indeed for that. And thank you to you for watching this edition of Access Asia.
Hello, you're watching Around the World here on France 24. I'm Haxi Myers-Belkin. These are today's top stories. Fresh Israeli strikes are reported on southern Lebanon this Friday as Iran suggests an end to Israel's attacks on the country could be a precondition for ceasefire talks with the US set for tomorrow in Islamabad. French President Emmanuel Macron sits down for a private audience with the Pope. Top of the agenda in the Vatican, how to bring about resolution to the war in the Middle East. And astronauts aboard the Artemis II prepare for a dramatic splashdown in the Pacific after travelling on a loop around the moon that took them further from the Earth than any humans had travelled before. Negotiators from Iran and the US are this Friday gearing up for crunch ceasefire talks scheduled to begin on Saturday in Islamabad. Washington will be represented by Vice President J.D. Vance, while Tehran hasn't yet disclosed who it will be sending, with a news agency close to Iran's Revolutionary Guards claiming talks would, quote, remain suspended unless the US pressures Israel to halt its attacks in Lebanon. That as the country's supreme leader suggested war reparations could be yet another ceasefire condition. Let's take a listen now to the US Vice President speaking about those talks earlier today.
Look, we're looking forward to the negotiation. I think it's going to be positive. We'll, of course, see. As the President of the United States said, if the Iranians are willing to negotiate in good faith, we're certainly willing to extend the open hand. If they're going to try to play us, then they're going to find that the negotiating team is not that receptive. So we're going to try to have a positive negotiation. The President has gave us some pretty clear guidelines, and we're going to see.
Lebanon is planning to attend a meeting next week in Washington with US and Israeli representatives to discuss and announce a ceasefire. That according to a senior Lebanese official talking to Reuters. That official adding that a ceasefire was a precondition to further talks to reach a broader deal with Israel. Meanwhile, there have been fresh Israeli strikes on southern Lebanon this Friday, with at least 5 people killed across the cities of Tyre and Bel Jabil. Hezbollah has also been firing missiles into Israel from Lebanon, including at the country's Ashdod naval base. A little earlier, I spoke with our correspondent in Doha, Hoda Abdelhamid. I asked her about the apparent success of reported US efforts to convince the Israelis to ease up on their strikes on Lebanon.
It is bearing fruit, even though there have been attacks today, but certainly not at the scope and the level we have seen yesterday. So certainly it is working to a certain point. That comes from a lot of pressure from the Trump administration on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who apparently he was told to, quote unquote, cool it down or bring it to a low-key level of fighting, at least during these negotiations until the end of the negotiation. But the situation in Lebanon is very complicated, maybe even more complicated than the situation with Iran, simply because Israel also has some territorial wishes when it comes to Israel. It wishes to occupy a part of that country, at least until the Litani River. It's something that it has wished since a long time. It failed in the past. It's trying to do it now, calling it a buffer zone for the security of Israel. Now, what happens to Hezbollah is the big question. And I think at the end of the day, all of that will be together on the same file on some table when the negotiations kick off.
French President Emmanuel Macron is in Vatican City this Friday for his first meeting with Pope Leo XIV. The pair held a private audience that was expected to focus on the war in the Middle East. A little earlier, I spoke with our correspondent in the Vatican, Seema Gupta.
Well, what we do know, as you mentioned, it was
WESN. Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity